Hey guys, welcome into another episode of the Fat Guy Podcast. I am the Fat Guy. Most people I know just call me Brett. Glad that you're here today. Thanks so much for listening. And if you haven't subscribed yet, wherever you get your podcast, whether it be Apple Podcasts, the Google Play Store, maybe I don't know where you may be getting it. I think I simultaneously upload them to YouTube, which is not many people listen to YouTube, but a few people do. They're on the website, obviously. Nevertheless, subscribe to the podcast. That way you know when new episodes are coming, especially if you're interested in losing weight, improving your cardiovascular health, your mental health, your physical health, ketogenic diets, fasting, all that kind of stuff. Today's show is all about fasting. I'm very excited. A new study out on over 1,400 people. This is, I guess, maybe the largest study in recent history. Well-done study in recent history on fasting. Over 1,422 people. And not just young people or middle-aged people or old people. The age of the people in this study ranged from 18 years of age to 99 years of age. That's a pretty wide range of people fasting in the study. So the results of the study are exciting. So a couple things. We're going to run through the results of the study. I'm going to tell you about the health benefits. I'm going to tell you about negative effects, if any. I'll give you a link to the study as well in the show notes, which I guess you could jump to now if you'd like. But you know how studies are. Sometimes it's hard to parse out the information. Nevertheless, wherever the notes are for wherever you're listening to this podcast at, in the notes will be a link to the study so you can go see it for yourself. And I'm excited about it. Follow us on social media, Fat Guy Podcast. The two major places I post are Instagram and Facebook. But we're also on Twitter as well. Fat Guy Podcast is the username there. And by all means, share any of our stuff anytime because you never know who you'll be helping. All right. So let's jump right into the study. As I already said, it was 1,422 people. They ranged in age from 18 to 99. Now, here's the interesting thing. This study was not on intermittent fasting, not on 16 hours eating, 8 hours fasting, not on 23 hours fasting, 1 hour eating, none of that, 1 day short intermittent stuff. These people fasted, excuse me. Their fast ranged from 4 days, which most people consider impossibly long. I love 4 to 5 day fast, but their fast ranged from 4 days all the way up to some of them fasted 21 days. So these are long fast, extended fast. The shortest fast was 4 days. The longest fast was 21 days. So let's start by talking about the positive effects that people experienced. And some of these percentages and numbers are just mind-blowing, okay? I think this part will probably be obvious. 100% of people studied lost belly fat. Now, I think that's significant. They didn't just lose weight. They lost the weight you want to lose. They lost the visceral fat, the fat that's around your organs, the fat that's killing you, as well as the fat that nobody likes. Nobody likes the fat stomach. So fasting directly affected the fat, 99.999% of us are dying to lose. 100% of the people in the study improved their blood pressure. 100%. Now, I'm just going to stop just briefly and talk about that. There's nothing out there that doctors do or prescribe in terms of medicine or anything that has a 100% success rate. Nothing. There's no pill they have, no potion, nothing they sell that has a 100% success rate, period. None. Good for them is like, I was watching this cancer pill or treatment commercial the other day where they talked about how much you could live longer and enjoy life on this new cancer treatment. And I went and actually read the research on it, and it improved people's lifespans by an average of 3 months, which meant half the people in the study lived, less than 3 months. So, granted, if you're dying from cancer, an extra 3 months a lot of people would love to have that. But the commercial makes it seem like, oh God, this is a miracle drug. You're going to be fine. That's an extreme example. Nevertheless, it makes my point. 93% of the people who fasted said they felt better physically and emotionally, and the big one in this was they had reduced hunger. 93% of people who fasted 4 days or longer, all the way up to 21 days, said they were less hungry. How is that even possible? I know some of you are screaming at the top of your lungs right now. That makes no sense. And this is something I tell people all the time. The longer you fast, the less hungry you'll become. People think that if you last one day, the first day of the fast, you're dying, you're so hungry. Generally, the second day of the fast is pretty much the same. You're just hungry. You have these waves of hunger that will come and just make you think you're dying of starvation. Now, are you ever going to survive? And I tell people, initially, your body is used to being all carved up and fed up. It hasn't quite said, okay, I got to go start living off my fat now. But once your body decides that you're not going to feed it anymore, and it starts eating your fat, it has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of calories of food on it to eat. So it's like being at a buffet. It doesn't get hungry anymore. There's no need for it to be hungry. It's eating tons of food. All that food that you've been storing all the years that you've been fat, that it should have been eaten, but you never stopped eating long enough for it to eat, it's finally getting to eat it. And your body is well adapted to live off of that fat. So the longer you fast, the less hungry you get. Now, I follow a lot of people who do really long fast. Follow people who frequently do 14-day fast. Not frequently, several times a year. 21-day fast. I know people have done 30-day fast, 40-day fast. I know a guy who did a 150-day fast. He started out at over 500 pounds. The 150-day fast guy never got hungry. The whole 150 days, never got hungry, not once. Most people, though, that do extended fasting will say that feeling of not having hunger and stuff that eventually comes may cycle back in at various times later for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or, once on day 9 and maybe once on day 11 it comes back. But generally speaking, you're not hungry. You don't, hungry, most people who are hungry aren't hungry. You're craving carbs, or your body is just accustomed to eating at certain times, and so you're having this ghrelin response, and ghrelin is the hunger hormone, and it increases in cycles, and you can watch it when they test people's blood over 24-hour periods for several days. They see that if you normally eat at 7 in the morning, noon, and 6 in the evening, it doesn't matter if you eat or not, your ghrelin hunger response goes up at those times just out of habit. So you're going to feel hungry whether you're hungry or not. So I know I spent a lot of time on that, but I think it's important because most people think, 4 days. I could never go 4 days. And once you go 4 days, you're like, now I understand how people could go 4 days. And the other thing I tell people is 4 days is the magic day. Like if you're stopping short of 4 days, you're cheating yourself out of the magic day, because day 4 is the day that some of these benefits I'm going to talk about in a few minutes actually start to kick in. So the best part of it you miss if you don't make it to day 4. And that brings me to the next one on the list. 100% of people in the study reported increased mental clarity and well-being. And this kicks in at around, for some people, day 3 to day 4. Definitely if you make it to day 5. It's amazing. Your mind is so clear. I call it carb fog. You get rid of the carb fog, all that stuff goes away. You're intently focused. You can do mental work like nobody's business. And you have this increased sense of not only mental clarity, but just well-being. It's just amazing how good you feel. And this happened in 100% of the people in this study. What about bad stuff you're happening? Everybody tells you you're going to starve. Oh, God, fasting is you're starving your body, you're killing yourself, blah, 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 blah. Starvation mode. Oh, God, I'm going to do a whole podcast on starvation mode. So if you've ever heard the term starvation mode, or starvation mode is something that terrifies you, definitely subscribe to the podcast, because I'm going to do a whole podcast on nothing but starvation mode. So there's an incentive for you to subscribe to the podcast. So, how dangerous is it? Less than 1% of these 1,422 people ranging in age from 18 to 99, less than 1% experienced any kind of an adverse reaction to fasting. And of those less than 1%, not 1%, less than 1%, of those, none of them were life-threatening. A few of the adverse reactions that were noted, and I won't list all of them because there's some of them are like headaches, and I've experienced that. As a matter of fact, last time I did a 5-day fast, and me and my buddy that does it with me, Amanda, who's does 5-day fast with me, she experienced it as well. We had really bad headache, and that doesn't always happen because, see, I fast often, so I know that it's rare, and I don't know what causes it, but I had it last time. Around day 3, it kicked in, and I had a headache for 2 days. I did take some ibuprofen. It did get better, but then I ended my fast the morning of day 5, so it wasn't that big of an issue because I wasn't going longer than 5 days anyway. But most of the time, I never have that. But sometimes you can, and I don't know why, but headache is a well-known possible side effect of fasting. So it's things like that, negative adverse reactions to fasting. Things like that can definitely happen. The more serious ones would be loss of electrolytes, and I would say this is for probably not the 4-day fasting people. You don't really need to worry too much about loss of electrolytes. I'm also going to tell you how to primarily fix that so it's not an issue at all. It's how I fast and how people that I talk to and try to give them advice on how they fast. But it was loss of electrolytes. But this occurred especially in the longer fast, and I'd say this starts happening if you go 5 days and longer. You may start seeing a loss of electrolytes, maybe depending on how much water you drink and what kind of work you do. If you're an outside worker in the sun, or you're somebody that's extremely physical all day, you're going to run a higher risk of loss of electrolytes. But again, it's an easy fix for the most part. Electrolytes, and for the sake of this study, included everything from sodium, potassium, calcium, phosphorus, etc. And none of the people was at severe levels, or life-threatening levels, but it did cause some issues. And it's always something that should be addressed, by the way. I'm not by any means saying you shouldn't address it if it happens. I can tell you from experience what some of those symptoms are, so you can know they're coming. And this is when people are fasting and asking me about it. This is one of the things I tell them. Don't worry about the hunger. Don't necessarily worry about the headaches and stuff too much. All that's really natural, especially the first few days. But if you have extreme dizziness or vertigo or extreme nausea or things like that, that's something that you really might want to keep an eye on. And generally, that is electrolytes. Generally, that's what that's caused from. And it's a relatively easy fix. So I guess I'll address that now because that's what I'm talking about it now. I was going to do it at the end of the thing, but I'll just talk about it now. So here's what I drink. There's a couple of things I drink when I'm fasting. If I'm going to be fasting, if I do a 16 and 8 fast or a 23 and 1 fast, or even a 48-hour fast. If I do a 48-hour fast, I don't worry about electrolytes. But once I'm going to go more than 2 days, I just go ahead from day 1 and do electrolyte drinks. There's a couple ways you can do it. There's a product called ZipFizz that I really like. It's rather expensive. It's going to cost you about $1 per drink, but it comes in a powder. But it's really high in oh God, why is my brain not working right now? Potassium, which is hard to get. It's hard to get potassium. For some reason, the government limits potassium pills to 99 milligrams, which is nothing. Your body needs 4,500 to 5,500 milligrams of potassium a day, and the only pills you can buy are 99 milligrams. You have to take a ton of those for them to matter. But if you get it in powder form, there's some places you can find it where there's more. ZipFizz is not only delicious, has a lot of B vitamins in it as well, and a lot of other vitamins, so it's just good to drink in general. But it has nice levels of potassium. I think it has something like 800 or 900 milligrams of potassium. So you can really drink 3 of them a day if you wanted to. It's not that high in sodium, though. So if I'm drinking the ZipFizz, I have these sodium pills that I will take that are 1,000 milligrams, and I'll take a couple to 3 of those a day. You never want to take them all at one time. Bad things will happen in your digestive tract if you do. You'll be on the pot. So I'll take a pill in the morning, 1,000 milligram in the morning, and then around middle of the day I'll take another one, and then in the afternoon or evening I'll take another one. So if I do it that way, that's how I do it. The other way I do it is I'll just you can get zero. You can get either Gatorade Zero or Powerade Zero, and for me the yellow flavors work best. But for you, it may be other flavors, but they already have a very minute amount of salt and potassium. And when I say minute, it's so small, it's laughable. So, when people go, oh, I'll drink some Gatorade for my electrolytes. Well, you're not getting any electrolytes from Gatorade. Gatorade is mostly sugar. That's the only reason it ever worked for the football teams. They were just pounding sugar in their body. But if you get the zero forms, there's no sugar. So the Gatorade Zero, and not the lower sugar Gatorade, not that one. Don't be fooled by that one. It's got to be Gatorade Zero or Powerade Zero. I prefer the yellow flavor. And then in the salt section or store where you get your regular salt, you want to get light salt. And flip it over and look at the label and make sure this is what the label says it is, but it should be half sodium, half potassium. So that way you're getting sodium and potassium. That's what light salt is. They cut the sodium in half by making half of it potassium. So you can take that, take about a teaspoon to 2 teaspoons and put it in one of those, 32-ounce Gatorade Zeros or Powerade Zeros, and it'll salten it up for you, make it salty. But to me, it's delicious. Matter of fact, I have one I'm sipping. Matter of fact, I'm going to take a sip of one right now because my throat is starting to be funky that I've talked so much, so bear with me. But nevertheless, this bottle of Gatorade Zero is the yellow flavor, and I've put a teaspoon of the light salt in it. Yummy. You don't want to down that. You want to sip it over an hour or so. But that's just a real easy fix for electrolytes. Now, other things that you can put in there, and the more stuff you add, the worse it's going to taste. But it's really good for your stomach, and it's really good for your kidneys. If you take like a quarter teaspoon, half teaspoon or something maybe of baking soda. Not baking powder, not what you put in bread to make it rise. Baking soda, good old Arm & Hammer baking soda works. Quarter to a half teaspoon of that in there. That will help with restoration of electrolytes, etc. as well. So I think I've covered all that. Here's a big one, and I know a lot of people ask me this question, but it had zero negative effect on kidneys or liver. They specifically did liver and kidney tests because that's been a big concern of people. But it had zero negative effect on kidney and liver. So this is people that fasted 4 to 21 days, ranging in age from 18 to 99. None of them had kidney or liver issues. Now I find this remarkable, and this is something that I've known. And this is going to sound sacrilegious. I don't mean it to be sacrilegious. This is just my factual observation of life. I was a kid raised in church my whole life. Our church had church services 4 to 5 days a week, and I'm not exaggerating about that. I wound up making my way into church where we had a traveling group where we traveled around and sang and preached and ministered to people and did all that. I have extensive experience in church. If I were to compare anything remotely resembling miraculous results of people praying for people or people fasting, fasting wins hands down. Fasting cures things at rates that are just remarkable. It improves health conditions at rates that are just remarkable. We're going to talk about a few of those that were discovered in this study. But it's one reason it's not sacrilegious, because no matter what your religion is, your religion teaches you to fast and has numerous examples of it. I'm assuming probably everybody that's listening to this podcast is Christian. Jesus fasted 40 days. When Jesus was talking about the guy that was, I guess, was crazy or mentally ill or had those issues, Jesus said, these come out not but by fasting and prayer. He put fasting first. And on and on and on. There's verses in there about fasting being good for your belly, which, it's hard. The translation into translation. It's generally recognized as being abdominal issues, health issues, whatever. Fasting is good. Fasting is restorative. Fasting is healing. Starving is not. And this is where people get confused, but I'm going to move on with the study. But fasting is not starving. If that doesn't make sense to you, you can go back and listen to a podcast that I did a couple weeks ago on why fasting isn't starving. So this is amazing. 404 people out of this over 1,400, 404 of them had a health condition that they hoped fasting would improve. That's why they were in there in the study doing the 4-day to 21-day fast. Okay? 404 of those people had a health condition that they were hoping would improve. 341 of them saw improvement in their health condition. That's an insane 85%. I take you back to the numbers I was talking about earlier. You find me any kind of a pill or potion that a doctor prescribes that has an 85% success rate. I'm not saying that there's none out there, but there's few. There's just few. There's just few. That's just an insane statistic from this. And it wasn't even a health-related study. They were just studying fasting and its adverse effects and its blood lipid effects and effects on, the body and organs and things. They just wanted to know, was fasting safe? That's really what they were studying. But as a result, this is one of the things they found in the study. Obviously it wasn't a health-related study, or all 1,400 of them would have had some kind of health problem they wanted fixed. But no, only 404 of the people were actually in their fasting and hoping to see some kind of positive result for their health condition. And of those, 85% of those 404 people saw an improvement in their health condition. Fasting is just amazing, guys. It's not a cure-all. Nothing is a cure-all, but it's as close to a cure-all as you can get for many, many, many health-related things. So here's some interesting results from their blood studies and studies that they did over the course of this trial. Inflammatory markers went down, and if you know anything about inflammation, all the latest research in the past decade has shown that inflammation is the primary driver between everything from cancer to heart disease, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Inflammation is bad, y'all. It's real bad. So inflammatory markers went down in all the people in the study. Blood lipids improved, including LDL going down. Well, LDL is evil, don't you know? Well, LDL went down in fasting. I tell you what I wish they'd done and they didn't do. I wish they would have tested triglycerides and HDL. You always look back at studies and go, man, they could have got this from the same blood draws that they were doing. Why don't we have results on that? And maybe they did results, they just include them. I don't know. I think they would have included them if they were really, really positive or really, really negative. So if they did test for HDL, which I don't know because they didn't mention it, they just had a general statement that blood lipids were improved. And then they specifically mentioned LDL. So it's possible that the HDL and triglycerides were improved, and that was just in the blanket statement that blood lipids were improved. We'll never know. Blood glucose improved, and for everybody in the study, blood glucose went down, which you'd expect. And since 99.999% of people in America have elevated levels of blood glucose, which leads to elevated levels of insulin, which leads to cancer and heart disease and dementia and Alzheimer's and cancer and all that stuff, you want it to be down. Well, it went down in everybody, and it went down to low normal levels. So it went down to the low end of normal. And that's, as long as your pancreas is functioning fine and liver is functioning fine, it's no problem. So what were the conclusions of the study, the overall conclusions? And at the end of every study, they have an abstract, and at the end they have a conclusion, and this is what they concluded from the study. Fasting is well tolerated, it's safe, with positive effects on blood panels and general health. It led to enhancement of emotional and physical well-being and improvements in relevant cardiovascular and general risk factors, as well as subjective health complaints. Now, did they specifically mention as a result of the study anybody that shouldn't fast? So, no, they didn't. So what do I mean by that? So after doing the study, Did they have any kind of blood result or physical ailment, or did anything come out as a result of the study that led them to believe certain people shouldn't fast? The answer to that is no. But what I can tell you is people that they excluded from being in the study. So this is, anybody that may have come to them and said, "Oh, I want to be in your fasting study." They'd ask them, do you have any of this? And if they did, they wouldn't let them in the study to begin with. So if you're looking for a guideline, I'm not even saying that this is an accurate guideline, because I think fasting might help some things. Maybe one thing on this list anyway. But I don't know, because I'm not a doctor, and I'm not claiming to be one, and you shouldn't construe anything I say as medical advice, ever. But these are people they wouldn't let fast. So if you're thinking, well, can I fast? Should I fast? This might be a rough guideline for you to seriously consider whether you should try fasting or not. So they wouldn't let people in who had a medical eating disorder like bulimia or, those type things. And I think that makes sense, If you have people that are either starving themselves to death, I'm sorry, but I can't think of the names of the eating disorders off the top of my head. Anorexia, bulimia, people that binge and purge. I mean, if you have, if you have that and it's been medically diagnosed, fasting is not going to help you. You already have an issue with that. You need to see somebody in the psychological health field first. If you're pregnant or lactating, you shouldn't be fasting. People who have dementia, they say, shouldn't be fasting. I'm going to be honest, I'm not sure about that one. I told you there was a couple I wasn't sure about. Here's why I'm not sure about dementia, because what I know about dementia, Alzheimer's, these type diseases, I know that there's studies that are out there that show that medical grade ketosis, and so this is not just weight loss levels of ketosis, but this is where you eat such low levels of carbs, like I believe it's 8 grams of carbs less a day, and your fat intake is like 90% fat. And this would be for like kids who suffer seizures, and that's primarily who it was designed for, but people with other medical diseases. So I know that they've shown that people who apply that to people who have Alzheimer's and dementia, they actually see improved cognitive function. So their cognitive function actually improves, because the brain, which has had some issues of damage and things like that, I think primarily to the mitochondria, but again, I'm not a doctor, so don't quote me on that. I've read studies about it in the past, but it's been a while, so me trying to quote them now would be futile. But I have read some, there's not a lot of studies out there, but I've read anecdotal and some studies information about there, how it improves it. And I know, generally speaking, that things like most of the body and the brain, there's a small part of the brain that can't run off of ketones, which is the fuel your body converts from fat, takes fat and converts it into ketone bodies, etc. There's a small part of the brain that has to run on carbs. That's why you need about 20 carbs a day, and if you don't eat them, your body will make them from fat substrate. But the rest of the brain actually runs better on on ketone bodies, and the short circuit in the brain for Alzheimer's and dementia and things like that, it kind of bypasses that short circuit because you're switching it from running on glucose to running on ketones, and they've seen cognitive improvement in those type of patients. So again, I'm not a doctor, and I'm not saying if you have dementia or Alzheimer's that you should fast. But I'm just saying I've seen evidence in the past that maybe disputes why maybe people with dementia shouldn't. And so maybe it's because people with cognitive impairment wouldn't be able to conduct the fast properly themselves, maybe. So maybe if it was supervised, I'm not sure why but anyway, I'm just giving you their list, but I just want to throw my thoughts on it. People who've suffered from cerebral hemorrhaging, they excluded from the fast, and people who had liver disease. Now, liver disease makes sense to me depending on the liver disease. So for your body because I just got through talking about how your body converts substrates of fat into ketone bodies, which is the fuel that your body then runs off of in lieu of sugar or glucose. You got to have a liver to do that. Your liver's got to work good to do that. It has to work correctly. So if your liver isn't working correctly to do that, then I could definitely see why fasting would be an issue. But those are the conditions of the people they wouldn't let in the study, so it may be a decent general guide for you. But as I always say, always consult a doctor before you make some kind of decision about health diet programs. But I always add the caveat to that: don't consult a stupid doctor. If you go to a stupid doctor that tells you keto's bad, can't do keto, keto's unhealthy, that's a good sign that you're seeing the wrong doctor. Because the overwhelming majority of the evidence, and it continues to come out now, they're doing more studies than ever now on keto. And look, keto isn't some kind of magic thing. It has a weird name because it refers to the body going into a state of ketosis and producing blood ketone bodies. But all you're doing is eating the same diet you always ate. You're just taking the bread and the pasta and the sugar out. It's not some kind of crazy, insane, weirdo diet. Before you didn't eat vegetables. I'm just going to be honest with you. For most people, before you didn't even eat vegetables. Keto, you actually eat vegetables. Most people actually eat more vegetables because you can't eat mashed potatoes at every freaking meal anymore, which is most people's idea of vegetables. Oh, well, I had mashed potatoes for lunch and dinner. I ate a lot. No, potatoes are not a vegetable. Potatoes are a starch. So is corn. If you have potatoes and corn, you didn't get no stinking vegetables. Vegetables are things that are good, like salads and leafy greens and broccoli and, cauliflower, asparagus, beans, green beans, things like this. These are vegetables. And so when you go keto, you actually eat those because you can't eat the crap that you used to call vegetables anymore. So vegetables actually go up. It's bizarre to me that doctors, I'm sorry, I'm on a rant now. But it's bizarre to me that doctors will have patients that are obese, high blood sugar, either pre-diabetic or type 2 diabetic, all these health issues, and they're like, well, you can't do that damn keto. That's not healthy, boy. It drives me insane. It's like the one thing that would help their patients the most, and they're telling them to not do it. But I digress. I feel the same about fasting. I joke with a friend of mine. I don't know if you've ever watched, what was it Brad Pitt and Ed Norton Fight Club? But the first rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club. That's kind of the first rule about fasting. If you tell somebody you're fasting, oh my God, are you in for it? You're so in for it. They are going to tell you how you're going to die. You're going to starve. You're about to go in starvation mode. You need nutrients. Oh my God, how are you going to survive without nutrients? And what's funny about that is most of the people that tell you this, watch what they eat during the day and try to figure out where they're getting any nutrients from. How many nutrients are they getting from the battered and fried chicken and mashed potatoes and gravy that they ate for lunch? How many nutrients did they get? Not many. They mostly just got fat and carbs that's what they consumed. And those are macronutrients. But where are all these micronutrients you're saying that I'm going to need? It's just laughable to me. Nevertheless, I hope that you learned something from today's podcast. If you want to look at the study yourself, it's going to be in the show notes. So, thefightguypodcast.com. I guess the episode's still uploaded there. I haven't checked in forever. It's set to go there automatically. And you should be able to see the link in the notes there. But if you get us on Apple Podcast or the Google Play Store or wherever you're getting this from right now, even if you're just clicking the link that you saw on Facebook and it takes you to the Spreaker page, if you scroll down, you should be able to see the notes, the headline that I made, the notes that I made, and you should be able to see the link to the study. So you can read the study for yourself. You don't have to take my word for it. Thank you so much for listening today. Like, comment, share, subscribe if you're not subscribed already, and follow us on social media. Fat Guy Podcast. Thank you so much.